let's go into this story about Gretchen Whitmer because this is the one that's going to grind my gears the most. She was on Chris Wallace's show, and she admitted out loud that some things didn't make sense during the old pandemic. This clip is circulating around, and this is super annoying. Now she's going to say it didn't make sense, and then she's going to try to justify it too, as she justified it in the past. But even in her justification, it's not really accurate. So let's listen.
There were moments where we, had to make some decisions that, in retrospect, don't make a lot of sense, right? If you went into the hardware store, you could go in the hardware store, but we didn't want people, all congregating around the gardening supplies. People said, "Oh, she's outlawed seeds." It was February in Michigan. No one was planting anyway. But that being said, some of those policies, I look back and think, that what maybe was a little more than we needed to do.
So, one thing that is really interesting that Elon Musk did is that you can have these notes on Twitter. So someone had posted this clip of, Whitmer. That's when I first saw it on Twitter. And under the notes, to add context, the reader said, on March 23rd, 2020, Governor Gretchen Whitmer issued Michigan's first stay-at-home order banning non-essential in-person work. On April 9th, 2020, she extended the order, closing garden centers and nurseries at stores. And so she's saying it was February, people weren't planting. That was not the case. She didn't start issuing them until a bit later, and April is when people, couldn't go to this, get their seeds or whatever. And that's when people start to buy stuff to plant. So she's wrong. Maybe she sincerely has the dates wrong. I don't know how she can have it that wrong. But it's still a dumb thing to say, oh, by the way, no one was planting, as to still justify. And by the way, when she was called out before, I think she was on either MSNBC or CNN, one of those networks, being challenged for her orders, because she had Michigan. If you're not from Michigan, you don't know what it was like unless you were like in the other really hard lockdown states. But we were a very extreme state as far as our lockdowns, and things didn't make sense. And we were one of the states that they put nursing home patients, mixed them with COVID patients, and we had a lot of people who were dying from COVID who were elderly, partly because of that policy too, which she didn't really want to own up to. And by the way, and some people think for whatever reason that people were just putting them in nursing, people who were COVID positive or whatever, going to nursing homes or recovering from COVID, going to nursing homes. Like, well, that's where they live. No, they were putting people who did not live in nursing homes, recovering from COVID positive, whatever. When my dad left the hospital, or he was about to leave the hospital after having COVID, and if you're like, oh, he should have took the vaccine wasn't out at the time when he got really sick and went to the hospital. He was there for a long time, and he needed a lot of care. And we had another relative who had gone to a nursing home. They did not really take care of her. She actually called the hospital and had them take her back because she had caught pneumonia while she was there. And we had heard other stories, and we're like, you cannot have our dad. You cannot bring him to a nursing home. And they were really pressuring, at some point threatening, like, well, it can look like you guys are refusing medical care. And we're like, what the heck? Like, we just want our dad back. And we hadn't, it was a terrible time. We did so many immoral things during that time. And it kills me that at least when we have the opportunity to hold Gretchen Whitmer accountable for that, by her at least not winning, that did not happen. But it was a very hard time for a lot of people, but it was a hard time. But they were really pressuring people to go to nursing homes, and maybe had something to do with the fact that people were financially incentivized to have COVID patients in nursing homes, which, why the heck would you do that? And there are 5 different governors, all Democrats, who did that. It was Newsom, Whitmer, it was in Pennsylvania, did it too. Where else did they do it? New Jersey. I'm missing one. But there are 5 states where they did it, and we were one of them. And she had it wasn't just like seeds that you couldn't get. It was also paint supplies. And my sister is an artist. So um it's amazing. Like, you go to McDonald's, you could work at McDonald's because that was considered essential. But if you were already in a big box store or something, and there's paint or paint thinner or whatever it was, or seeds, whatever you may need, you can't go get the stuff that you already needed in that area, even though you're in there and you're just roping stuff off. It didn't make any sense at the time. And you're also impeding upon people it's essential for my sister. She's an artist. She needed that stuff. So you got to close down her actual like day job because she was working in retail, and you're like, well, that's not essential. So even though that's how you make money, we got to shut that down, and you can't work there, okay? Because you're not an essential worker. And by the way, your side hustle, you can't. We don't want you to be able to be able to get your supplies there at the store while you're out, even though you bought some chicken or eggs or whatever. You can't just go pick that up when you're there. You better go on Amazon and give some more money to Jeff Bezos, because who doesn't need to give more money to the tech billionaires, So it was an awful, terrible time. But she justified it on the news before, saying, oh, well, it's winter. No one's planting seeds, buying like, you guys don't need to do this.
The overwhelming majority of governors in this country, as you know, have issued stay-at-home orders, but yours have been considered to be among the most stringent in this country. Folks who have vacation homes in Michigan, if they're residents, they're not being allowed to travel to those vacation homes. You're asking stores that sell things like, paint and garden supplies, having those stores shut down, not considering them essential. What's the thinking behind your particular stay-at-home order?
Well, let me tell you this. Michigan has the third most COVID-19 cases in the nation right now, and we are not the third largest state in the nation. That tells you we've got a unique crisis on our hands, and that it demands a unique solution. So we just had snow. I've got snow on the ground here in Michigan right now in Lansing. We're expecting, up to 30 inches in the Upper Peninsula. The fact that we're cracking down on people traveling between homes or planting or landscaping or golfing really for a couple more weeks isn't going to meaningfully impact people's ability to do it, because the snow will do that in and of itself.
It was never not dumb. But she defended it. They could have just rolled it back and just been like, it was a mistake. A lot of things were dumb. And you know what? People, when all this started first breaking out, people were concerned about not being able to work. They were concerned about the virus and stuff. But, there were people who were never really cooperative, but it seemed like most people were like, let's go along at least for a little while. And then when stuff got really dumb, that's when they started losing a lot of people, at least as far as what I observed. When they started saying, like, you can go out on the water if it's a canoe, but if you got a motor in your boat, nah, we can't do that. It's like, really, bruh? But all these other, Democrats, they were breaking their own rules, and she got busted on quite a few COVID inappropriate hypocrisies herself. So she's still lying. And on the debate stage, she was asked, like, is there anything that you would like do over, or you can say, in hindsight wasn't good? I'm paraphrasing, but she would not answer, at least not honestly. And she obviously said something, but it wasn't just, hey, we shouldn't have did this, or we shouldn't have did that. And why would she admit that? Because there's someone else on stage who's like, you suck. And you've done so many bad things. So now she's like, oh, in retrospect, it didn't make sense. It took retrospect to not make sense. Okay.
Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you go to blacktnews.com and check out different articles, different videos, and also check out our merchandise. If you like what I do, you can also support at the website on the donate page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and also that notification bell. God bless.